The billionaire CEO sat alone at his wife's grave. A single mom asked if he needed a family. The rain poured heavily over the cemetery as a billionaire CEO sat alone beside his wife's grave. His expensive suit was soaked, his hands trembled, and his eyes remained fixed on the cold white stone in front of him. He had everything money could buy: private jets, luxury homes, successful companies, and worldwide fame. Yet on that lonely afternoon, he felt poorer than any man alive. What happened next would change his life forever in a way he never imagined. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of human connection, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories. Ethan Carter was one of the most successful businessmen in America. At only 42 years old, he owned a massive technology empire worth billions of dollars. Newspapers called him a genius. Business magazines featured him on their covers. Investors trusted him, competitors feared him, and employees admired him. But none of those things mattered anymore. 3 years earlier, Ethan had lost the love of his life. His wife, Emma, had been more than just a partner. She had been his best friend, his source of strength, and the only person who truly understood the pressure he carried every day. When Ethan was building his company from a small office with almost no money, Emma stood beside him. When he faced failures, she encouraged him. When success arrived, she kept him humble. Then one terrible evening, a distracted driver ran a red light. Everything changed in seconds. Emma never made it home. The accident shattered Ethan's world. The funeral was attended by thousands of people. Business leaders, politicians, celebrities, and friends all came to offer support. But after everyone left, Ethan discovered something painful. Grief could not be shared. Every night he returned to an empty mansion. Every morning he woke up without hearing Emma's voice. Every success felt meaningless because there was nobody waiting to celebrate it with him. Over time, he became colder. His smile disappeared. His work became his only escape. He spent longer hours at the office and shorter hours with people. He avoided social gatherings. He declined invitations. He stopped making personal connections. His employees noticed the change. The compassionate leader they once knew had become distant and emotionless. 3 years passed this way. Every Sunday, no matter the weather, Ethan visited Emma's grave. It became a ritual. A promise. A way to stay connected to the woman he still loved. On one rainy Sunday afternoon, while sitting beside the grave, Ethan noticed someone standing nearby. A young woman held an umbrella over herself and a small boy beside her. The child looked no older than 6. The woman appeared hesitant. She seemed unsure whether she should approach. After a few moments, she slowly walked closer. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. She was a single mother. Life had not been kind to her. Her husband had abandoned her years earlier when their son was still a baby. Since then, she worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table and pay rent. Every month felt like a battle. Yet despite her struggles, Sarah had somehow kept her kindness alive. She had come to visit her own mother's grave when she noticed Ethan sitting alone in the rain. For nearly an hour she watched him. The loneliness in his posture broke her heart. She recognized him immediately from television. Everyone knew who Ethan Carter was. But in that moment, he did not look like a billionaire. He looked like a broken man. Sarah finally gathered enough courage to approach. The simple act of human concern that followed would begin changing 2 lives. She gently asked if he was all right. At first Ethan barely responded. He had become accustomed to people approaching him because of his wealth, status, or influence. But Sarah's concern felt different. There was no hidden motive. No request. No expectation. Just genuine kindness. For the first time in months, Ethan found himself speaking honestly. Not as a CEO. Not as a billionaire. Just as a grieving husband. Their conversation lasted only a few minutes before the rain became heavier. Sarah and her son eventually left. Yet something unusual happened. As Ethan drove home that evening, he could not stop thinking about the encounter. It wasn't because Sarah was beautiful. It wasn't because she treated him like a celebrity. It was because she had spoken to him as though he were simply another human being deserving compassion. That feeling stayed with him. The following Sunday, Ethan returned to the cemetery. To his surprise, Sarah was there again. This time they spoke longer. Then the next Sunday came. And the one after that. Week after week, their conversations became a regular part of Ethan's life. He learned about Sarah's struggles. He learned about her son, Noah. He learned about the sacrifices she made every day. Meanwhile, Sarah learned about the man behind the headlines. She discovered that despite his wealth, Ethan carried enormous pain. For the first time in years, he allowed someone to see his vulnerability. Months passed. One afternoon, Noah accidentally kicked a soccer ball toward Ethan while they were near the cemetery entrance. The boy nervously apologized. Instead of becoming annoyed, Ethan smiled. It was a small moment. But it felt significant. He had not genuinely smiled in years. Noah began looking forward to seeing Ethan each Sunday. The child would excitedly tell stories about school, dreams, and adventures. Children have a unique ability to heal wounds they do not even understand. Little by little, Noah brought warmth back into Ethan's life. For Sarah, the changes were equally noticeable. She saw a softer side of Ethan emerge. The cold businessman slowly disappeared. The compassionate man Emma once loved began returning. One winter evening, Sarah's car broke down while she was driving home from work. She had almost no money for repairs. The situation threatened her ability to keep her job. When Ethan learned what happened, he quietly arranged assistance. He didn't buy her a luxury vehicle. He didn't try to impress her. He simply made sure she had reliable transportation. Sarah was deeply grateful. But more importantly, she understood something. Ethan's generosity came from kindness, not obligation. As the seasons changed, their friendship grew stronger. Yet Ethan continued struggling with guilt. Part of him felt disloyal. He still loved Emma. He still visited her grave. He still missed her every day. Sometimes he wondered whether allowing happiness back into his life meant forgetting her. That fear haunted him. One spring afternoon, Ethan sat alone beside Emma's grave after Sarah and Noah had left. He stared at the headstone for a long time. The wind moved gently through the trees. Birds sang somewhere in the distance. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider a difficult truth. Emma would never want him to remain trapped in grief forever. She would want him to live. She would want him to laugh. She would want him to love. The realization brought tears to his eyes. Not tears of despair. Tears of acceptance. That day marked a turning point. Over the next several months, Ethan became increasingly involved in Sarah and Noah's lives. He attended Noah's school events. He celebrated birthdays. He shared meals with them. The empty mansion that once felt like a prison slowly became a home again. Laughter returned. Life returned. Hope returned. However, not everyone approved. Some people accused Sarah of pursuing Ethan because of his wealth. Others claimed she was taking advantage of him. The rumors spread online. Articles appeared. Social media exploded with speculation. Sarah was devastated. She had spent years building an honest life despite countless hardships. Now strangers questioned her character. The criticism became overwhelming. Eventually, she considered ending her friendship with Ethan altogether. She believed doing so would protect both him and Noah. When Ethan learned about her decision, he experienced a familiar fear. The fear of losing someone important. But this time he refused to run away from it. Instead, he stood firmly beside Sarah. He publicly defended her integrity. He made it clear that she had never asked him for money, favors, or opportunities. He explained that she had helped him long before he helped her. Her kindness had reached him when he was at his lowest point. His words changed public perception. More importantly, they strengthened the bond between them. Years of loneliness had taught Ethan an important lesson. The opinions of strangers mattered far less than the people who genuinely cared about you. One evening, nearly 2 years after their first meeting, Ethan invited Sarah and Noah to dinner at his home. The atmosphere felt peaceful, comfortable, natural. After the meal, they sat together watching the sunset through large windows overlooking the city. Noah had fallen asleep on the couch. The room was quiet. In that peaceful silence, Ethan realized something profound. For the first time since Emma's death, he no longer felt alone. The emptiness that had consumed him for years had finally begun to heal. Not because someone replaced Emma. Nobody ever could. But because love had expanded rather than disappeared. The human heart is capable of carrying memories while still creating new ones. Several weeks later, Ethan visited the cemetery once again. He brought fresh flowers to Emma's grave. As he stood there, memories flooded his mind. The laughter they shared. The dreams they built. The life they created together. He silently thanked her. Not only for the years they spent together but for teaching him how to love deeply. That love had ultimately prepared him to recognize kindness when it appeared again. Later that same day, Ethan invited Sarah and Noah to a quiet park. The setting sun painted the sky with beautiful colors. Families played nearby. Children laughed in the distance. It felt like the perfect moment. There, surrounded by warmth and life, Ethan expressed what had been growing in his heart for a long time. He wanted to build a future with them. Not because he needed someone to replace his past. But because he wanted to share his future. Sarah was overwhelmed with emotion. She understood the journey Ethan had traveled. She knew how difficult it had been. And she knew their connection had been built on something genuine. Trust. Respect. Kindness. Healing. Months later, they were married in a simple ceremony attended by close friends and family. There were no extravagant, and sometimes, that is enough to change an entire life. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone.